Hello, my name is Joseph. I've done a couple YouTube videos in the past, and I thought, why not do another one? So today I'm going to share with you a couple things. As you can see, I'm wearing my Vince Scully t-shirt. I'm, besides a music fan, especially a jazz fan, I'm a longtime Los Angeles Dodger baseball fan, and of course, we all mourned the death, or are mourning the death of legendary Dodger broadcaster Vince Scully. Vince Scully was a soundtrack for many of our lives growing up in Los Angeles, like myself in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and up until his retirement in 2016. So once again, thank you, Vin, for all those great calls, all the good times listening to Dodger baseball. But today I'm going to share with you a couple of albums. Like I say, I'm not too active on YouTube yet. I am pretty active on Instagram. And recently, I been started to post on Wednesdays and become a part of a Vinyl Wednesday battle hosted by the Vinyl Wife. And on Wednesdays, you're supposed to put two albums and kind of pit them against each other. And I've been having fun with that for a couple of weeks, putting up a couple of different albums. And today I decided to do two albums. And the first one is Tjader's Greatest Hits. It's on Fantasy label, and I believe it's a mid-60s compilation. And of course, Cal was a legendary vibraphonist out of San Francisco. He was the pioneer of Latin jazz. He actually got his start with Dave Brubeck on drums I think in the late 40s, early 50s. He was part of the Brubeck's group. But eventually he branched out on his own, and he became really one of the pioneers of Latin jazz. He had Mongo Santamaria in his group. He had Willie Bobo, among others, Vince Guaraldi, who would go on later to do the Charlie Brown soundtracks. And he's just an amazing artist. And one thing I can say about Cal that's unique in my life is I was good friends with Poncho Sanchez, who played with Cal in the mid 70s into the 80s. And I was able to go to quite a few shows with Cal, concerts by the sea, and throughout Southern California especially. And I got to meet Cal, hang out with Cal, and most importantly, hear a lot of great music live by that band that included Poncho Sanchez and sometimes Claire Fisher. But here we have an album of early Tjader, and in this one, of course, it's got the legendary Soul Sauce Wachiwara. And of course, Cal would always play that tune, and it was always a favorite. He recorded it a couple different times through the years, but I think this is the classic version. It's a short little version, and they say the credit goes to Dizzy Gillespie and Chano Pozo, the legendary Cuban pioneer of they brought the congas to bebop music with Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. But once again, it's got the mainstay Wachiwara, Soul Sauce. It's got Cubano Chant, which is also a standby written by jazz pianist Ray Bryant. It's got the beautiful Black Orchid and jazz standard Doxy that was made famous by Sonny Rollins. I think Rollins actually wrote the tune. And here it gets an expanded version, but instead of saxophone, it's got a long solo by Bay Area pianist Lonnie Hewitt, which is very, very tasty indeed. And of course, it's got a version of Afro Blue, which Mongo Santamaria wrote, and many people have performed that song, including John Coltrane. So compilations are really not something that collectors really look forward to. But I've had this album since probably in the 70s. I bought it, and I have enjoyed it through the years, and it's amazing. It's still the same album from those days. It's still in pretty good condition. So like I say, this is a vinyl battle day, and staying with the compilation, also on Fantasy Records, I have Mongo Santamaria. And like I say, Mongo was a member of Cal Tjader's band in the 50s, and then he eventually branched out on his own, and he became a leader of his own bandstand throughout the 60s into the 70s, I believe into the 80s. I'm not sure exactly at the time of his death. But this is also an outstanding compilation. It's got one of his best known compositions, Para Ti, which I believe has Chombo Silva, who was a tenor saxophone player, a Cuban tenor saxophone, a very, very tasty player indeed. He sounded somewhat like Stan Getz, but he was a constant player on many great Latin sessions. And one thing that's unique about this album is in the early days, Mongo played in a charanga style, which is a combination of flutes and violins. And it's very fun, happy music, very danceable music. And it became very popular in the ballrooms of New York and most particular on the East Coast. It was very popular. And he does also a version of Afro Blue on here. He does a version of Manteca, Dizzy Gillespie's tune. Actually, here it says it was written by Chano Pozo. And you can't go wrong with Mongo's early albums. They kind of lean more to a traditional Cuban type of dance sound. Later on, he would branch out more into a jazz vein. Especially in the 60s, he always had an outstanding band. Sometimes he had Hubert Laws, trumpeter Luis Gasca, and many, many other great players would come through Mongo's band. And I also, too, got the pleasure to see Mongo a couple times in I believe in the middle 70s, and he was always a kind and gracious man, and to hear him beat out those rhythms in person was just an amazing experience. So once again, we have the shout out. We got Mongo versus Tjader. Which would you choose?